Hey everybody, this is Perch. This is something that's come up. It comes up every time there's any kind of big rally, and you see a bunch of people of the protesters there who are wearing the Punisher symbol. And sometimes you see it. You saw it a lot in the summer where some of the police unions use the Punisher symbol for various parts of their gear. Now, I'll say on the offset, if you're the police, you're the law and order, running around with any kind of skull, Punisher or otherwise, it seems like a bad idea. But be that as it may. And of course, some military units use the Punisher logo for things. And this has really irritated some of the people in comics, like Jerry Conway and others, including many people who have worked on the Punisher, who do not like seeing kind of something that they wrote or they drew showing up with organizations or ideologies they disagree with. Sure, I would argue that particular feeling is not unlike a customer or a fan who's been enjoying Batman and Superman for 50 odd years, and then they a new writer comes on and does a big bold new status quo, and the reader feels betrayed, like this thing that they had invested and enjoyed has now become something else. The Punisher is a property. It's a something that's owned by Marvel Comics. It's not owned by any creator, certainly not any of the freelancers that worked on it. And that's a hard pill, I know, to swallow for some creators who, feel like they gave a lot of their lives, in many cases are known most for a particular run on a book. Chris Claremont has a lot of things that he has done that he owns, but in comics, people often will remember him for Uncanny X-Men. And that can be weird, right? You spend a bunch of your time, you're best known for a property you don't control. And as a creative force, you might feel like, hey, I'm kind of the father or the parent here. But the reality, the cold legal reality, is that they're not. The parent is Marvel. And by association now, it's Disney. And the same thing is true for any comic book character. But the Punisher is in the news again. And in this case, it is in the news because people are saying Disney needs to go sue these people who are using the Punisher logo, who have it on themselves, and they saw some clips. I'll admit I didn't see a lot of the clips. I watched a lot of what went on in DC yesterday, as in a mix of exhaustion and horror, like a lot of people. Please, I'm not doing a big sermon about whether the things were right or wrong. It's just to see this kind of chaos, whatever the chaos is. It's exhausting to me. And it's painful. It's painful for me to watch. This isn't how you expect a functional country to work. Any of this is not how you expect a functional country to work. But that's not the point. The point of this is, I'm seeing people and a lot of creators and a lot of kind of bigger names saying, come on, Disney, Marvel, enforce your trademarks, sue these protesters. And it's a statement that I find it's ridiculous because I go to this. So whether this is where take for a moment, whether you agree or disagree or any of that stuff, whatever side you're on, and put that aside for a moment if you can, which is really hard for a lot of people to do, but just put it aside for a moment and ask yourself, how would I do this? How could this actually be done? Where this whole topic is concerned, there's not a path for Disney to sue a protester for wearing the Punisher symbol. There's not a path to do it. It's why, for the last 30 years, there's been these cases where there's been, horrific crimes that have happened, and the criminal happens to be wearing Nike shoes or wearing a T-shirt that has Disney World on it, or who knows? They just happen to be wearing something that is promoting a brand. I remember somewhat famously, this goes back like 25 years, Reebok didn't like seeing their brand show up when there was a murder that was going on. I think the guy was either wearing Reebok shoes or the shoes got knocked out, whatever else. There's these pictures of the shoes, and the brand was very prominent while they're talking about this murder. And the company basically said to a lot of the news agencies, hey, we want you to blur out our brand. And the news agencies and the courts told them, basically, piss off. We'll do what we want. And in some cases, people will comply because they want the advertising dollars and they want the relationship with these companies, but they're under no legal obligation to do so. It's once you create something, you put it out in the world, somebody buys it legally, and they wear it. What happens next is kind of on them. And in all fairness, that is how it should be. Hopefully, nobody is looking at scenes of a murder crime and going, oh man, I have a much worse feeling about Reebok now. I mean, that's kind of crazy behavior. Just like, frankly, if you're viewing a bunch of protests and people are running around with the Punisher shirt, that is not a statement or a comment on the Punisher comic. The Punisher comic is its own thing. I mean, the Punisher has had a lot of adventures now over 50 odd years, including dying and Rick Remender had him come back as like Frankenstein for a while. Like, I mean, that is not a commentary on a bunch of guys storming the Capitol. So this idea that somebody can go sue these protesters for wearing this symbol, it's not feasible. Whether you hate it, you may hate to see it. I get that. It's fine. It may hurt your heart and your soul to see a comic book you love associated with this stuff because you don't believe it. That's fine too. But you don't have a legal path to go challenge that. Now, granted, many of the people wearing these shirts around, or putting stickers on their guns or whatever they happen to be doing, they're not paying for it. They went to Cafe Press or they went to some site like that and they printed off their own stickers, or maybe they downloaded the logo on the internet and they printed it on their printer and they made themselves a shirt or a sticker or whatever it happens to be. Now, technically, Disney, yes, could file a cease and desist, say you're using our brand without payment, and they could go after them. It's just, it's hard. And if you're a corporation, you're basically going to say, I am going to spend $25,000 in legal fees to go after this guy in his living room who printed off a Punisher sticker and plastered it on a sign and carried it to a protest. They would lose money in this process. They could go to a court and they could basically try and claim monetary damages and sue these people for that money. And Disney, as a corporation, has done this. There are definitely stories that are true of Disney going to daycares and other things where, the hapless daycare painted a bunch of pictures of Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck on their wall. And Disney's like, hey, you're using our brand without payment and you need to take this down. They've sued. But first off, that's happened a lot less than you think. You've heard that story. Probably many of you have heard that story. But that's just the thing. It's happened very few times. Most of the time what will happen is the big company sends a cease and desist, and what they're hoping is that the whoever's using their brand just complies because they don't want to deal with the courts. And 9 times out of 10, that is what happens. The company's like, I don't want to get sued by Disney, and they just stop. They'll paint over the wall. They'll not have their Punisher t-shirt, whatever it happens to be. They'll just stop. But when it goes to courts, again, history has shown us that even if like a Disney has the legal standing to basically say you're using our brand without permission, judges and courts tend to be irritated by the idea of a mega corporation like a Disney suing, Joe's daycare down the street. They find that, offensive, and in many cases they'll either throw out the suit or they'll basically, rule in favor of the corporation and rule that the daycare has to pay $1 in damages. That's happened many, many times. And so the corporation too has learned, don't do this. There's very famous rulings where the judge says, don't go do this. You're wasting our time. There's more important cases. This is a bad idea. And so this idea, this big call that we're seeing on Facebook and Twitter and other things saying, come on, Marvel and DC, go chase those trademarks. It's not in their financial best interest to do it. I'm not even sure how they would do it. I mean, like, are you going to watch CNN and try and find out who the identity was of like this random guy on the street who's got the Punisher logo there, and they're going to track him down and get his name and then send him a letter saying, hey, did you pay for that t-shirt? I mean, it's like nobody has the time or the money to do that, and they're not going to do it. It's not even reasonable for them to do it. I'm not, by the way, none of this video is saying you shouldn't protect your brands and your trademarks. You absolutely should. If you created something, it's yours. You have the rights to it. Absolutely. It's just there's a time and money investment here. You won't get anything valuable out the other end. There's no win here. Even if you quote unquote win and get the thing shut down, you're going to lose more money in the process, and you're not really going to accomplish anything. And the PR, by the way, is terrible for these things. When big corporations go after individuals to say, stop using our brand or our logo, the public sentiment on it is really negative. Again, I totally understand why some creators or people may feel miffed at seeing their brand attached to something they don't like. Again, it's not unlike customers who are miffed when characters they've followed for decades are suddenly doing things they don't like. I get it. But ultimately, these brands are owned by companies that have cheerfully licensed out this stuff. I mean, the reality is a lot of the Punisher shirts and things we see are not home printed off. They were bought by the person buying a t-shirt that Marvel cheerfully licensed to make some money. And that's what they're wearing around. You can't really go sue for that. Some people ask, hey, wait a minute. There's basically this argument that if it's a digital product, you don't really own it. You're licensing it. Well, that's true. There is that argument for digital, but this is a physical good, and there's just zero standing to go chase some of this stuff. So I hate to burst the bubble and be like Mr. Sorry dose of reality, but it's just, this is a nonsensical thing. And I know this is my personality. I'm sure it's everybody. Your mileage may vary. But generally, I don't have a lot of patience or time or interest in debating things that are impossible. This is kind of like a lot, and I'll just throw this out there to get some downvotes of people hating me. The entire gun control debate, by and large, a lot of the solutions that are offered for gun control are not feasible. They involve things like, well, I mean, it comes to the effect of like, hey, we're going to say a Harry Potter magic spell, and all the guns are going to magically disappear. Or we're going to hire Magneto to fly around over everybody's house, and the guns are going to magnetically lift into the sky, and then we'll form some big metal ball and toss it into the sun. You have to have a better plan. If you want to say these things, you need to have a workable plan of what you're actually going to do. And if that plan rests on, magic powers or fairy tales or, driving around house by house and offering people $40 for their gun, that's not going to get off the ground. So to me, it's a useless conversation. It's a waste of a conversation. We need to be pitching ideas and concepts that we actually have a hope to achieve. And so the idea of saying, Marvel Disney should sue everyone who's using their Punisher logo, that's just not feasible. First, no court in the land is going to want to hear that case. There's no outcome that works for that. It ties up, frankly, and all of us should say this, it ties up the courts in a stupid thing where the courts are arguably needed for many, many more important things. Wherever you fall in the political spectrum, you want your courts dealing with important things, not, did this guy print off the Punisher logo on his Epson printer and paste it onto some kind of board and carry it around for a day in DC? That's not anything you want to chase in the courts. I do think that Marvel's definitely going to put the Punisher on the back burner for a while. You're not going to see him show up in comics. At some point, that will change. He's IP. They're not going to just let that go. They've got, they're still making money off their Netflix deal, from what I understand. But yeah, we're not going to see the Punisher for a while. He's not going to be showing up in King in Black by the look of things. But he'll be back at some point, and then we'll see. Maybe the story will be good. Maybe it'll suck. I don't know. Those things are kind of independent from all the rest of this. At any rate, it is a wild time. It's crazy in the world right now, and I get that. But I hate to see this stuff. It's just silly because there's no plan here. So anyway, good luck. And like and subscribe, I guess. This is a weird one to ask for that for. But anyway, you can follow me on social media. We'll keep fighting the good fight. Anyone can have an idea and a suggestion. It's fine, but we ought to at least be throwing out some ideas where something could actually happen, like they could actually be acted upon. These kind of magical fantasy plans, I don't know what to do with those. And it just feels like we're wasting time from better things we could all be doing. The idea of suing people with the Punisher logo definitely falls into that category of like, I don't know what you're doing. That's a waste of time. Anyway, thanks for listening, and hope you're doing okay out there.